Discover the incredible journey that healed 1 million hearts, a touching tale of unexpected hope. Riley Thompson stood in her classroom, surrounded by the cacophony of laughter and chatter that was both familiar and comforting. A mix of construction paper cutouts and colorful drawings plastered the walls, sparks of joy she cultivated as a dedicated teacher. Yet inside, a storm brewed. The whispers of change echoed through Maplewood as Ethan Brooks returned to town, a boy from her past. Now a successful entrepreneur bringing back memories she couldn't shake off. Would his return cast a shadow over her own struggles, reminding her of her unfulfilled dreams? As the sun lit the room, painting everything with a golden hue, Riley felt an excitement sparking in her heart for her students. They were the future, but doubt hung heavily on her shoulders. The community that once stood behind its children seemed stuck in fear now, resistant to anything that might disrupt their slow-paced lives. Why couldn't they see what Ethan's investment could bring? Change could pave the way for something beautiful, but deep inside her, a familiar tightness gripped her. Was she brave enough to push for it? For years, Riley had wrapped hope in fragile lace, convincing herself that she could uplift her students against adversity. She fought the demons of her childhood, where belonging felt like a distant dream. But now, facing the swirling gossip and skepticism about Ethan's motives, her heart raced with the pressure to stand up and advocate for her beliefs. The last town meeting erupted into a fury of skepticism about the changes coming. Suddenly, whispers of doubt pinned her to the ground. Before she could wrestle through the fog, she found herself facing old friends bearing the taint of distrust. They questioned if the investment would be for them or for Ethan's own glory. Was Riley, a single mother barely scraping by, foolish to believe in something so fragile? When she opened her mouth to defend him, the words felt suffocated, battling against the ingrained voices from her past. She felt alone, a solitary figure against the tide of discontent washing over her. Where was the unity she once cherished? The internal conflict clawed at her, casting shadows over her joy. Just as she prepared to confront Ethan to explore his vision, the weight of her doubts pressed down harder. What if he was only in it for himself? What if he didn't care about the children just as others had shown her throughout her life? She couldn't bear the thought of siding with him. What if it backfired? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With the tension swelling, Riley conducted her breath into a shaky pace. As she stepped towards Ethan, a million thoughts raced through her head. Would he even remember their conversations from years ago or the dreams woven in the dim light of their youth? And then, beneath all those layers of uncertainty, they would have to face the scars of their pasts, ones that they thought were buried. This meeting wouldn't just be about the future of their town. It would be a reckoning and a fight against the scars that threatened to engulf them both. Just then, a nudge in the pit of her stomach told her this could change everything. As she took that step forward, all she could do was brace for the storm of emotions swirling around them, knowing peace and clarity lingered tantalizingly close yet painfully out of reach. Riley's heartbeat thudded in her ears as she approached Ethan, the chaos of her thoughts dissipating in the face of their shared history. Memories of laughter and ambition flickered in her mind, how they once dared to dream of revolutionizing their small town, to bring it back to life. But the shadows of time had been unkind, whispering doubts that painted their once bright ideals with shades of skepticism. Would he remember? Would he still be the friend who believed in the power of change, or had success dulled his vision, enveloping him in a world of self-interest? She scrutinized his face for any sign of recognition as Ethan turned, and there it was, an expression that mirrored her own mix of hesitation and hope. Riley. The husky warmth of his voice broke the spell of uncertainty, drawing her in like a moth to flame. It's been ages. Too long, she replied, forcing a smile that felt more like a mask. Inside, The battle between hope and fear raged fiercely. I've been thinking a lot about the future of Maplewood. Your plans, they could really make a difference. His gaze shifted, contemplative. You think so? There's a lot of resistance. I understand why people are hesitant. Riley's stomach twisted at the mention of resistance. She felt that tension at every town meeting, each questioning glance from familiar faces. But now, standing before him, could she lay her fears bare and reignite that spark of possibility? People are scared of losing what little they have. Change feels risky, even when it might lead us somewhere better. But if anyone can show them that growth is worth the risk, it's you. Ethan's brow furrowed. I appreciate your faith, but you know as much as I do, change breeds conflict. You're already bearing the brunt of that murmur trail. Are you prepared for it? His voice was steady but laced with an underlying urgency. In that moment, Riley recognized the parallel. They both stood at the crossroads of ambition and fear. She took a breath deep enough to calm the storm inside. It's time for me to step up, to confront the doubts and the whispers, she declared, surprising herself with her boldness. If I don't, my students will feel the weight of my indecision. They depend on us, on our vision. Ethan regarded her with a newfound respect. Then let us find a way to show them. Together. His words ignited something deep within her, a flicker of courage in the dim recesses of her heart. Together. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating. Riley allowed herself a moment of hope. What if they could pool their strengths, revive their dreams? But almost immediately, doubt slithered back in. She recalled the familiar faces contorted in skepticism at the thought of change. And could she really bear the backlash if it went awry? Ethan, she hesitated, searching his eyes for sincerity. What if you're not ready for this as much as I'm not? What if we stumble and the community suffers for our dreams? He stepped closer, earnestness spilling out of him. Every great achievement begins with uncertainty. What matters is how we respond. We inform, we inspire, we commit. Let us light the path forward, Riley. But could she lead others when she still felt so unsteady herself? As she looked into his gaze, a deep uncertainty clawed at her insides. Was she strong enough to rise from her past, to challenge the doubts threatening to engulf her? Riley's heart raced, torn between stepping into the light and hiding from the shadows. The moment had arrived. She felt it weighing on her like never before, a moment where she had to decide if she wanted to chase the path toward hope or remain ensnared in her fears. Before she could reply, the bell rang, jolting her back to reality. The day's lessons awaited her, but the real lesson loomed larger. Was she prepared to embrace the consequences of her choices? More importantly, could she withstand the inevitable confrontation with both her fears and the community's dissent? As the children poured into the room, laughter scattering like petals in the wind, Riley felt an awakening inside. It was time to act. She realized that sometimes courage wasn't about the absence of fear, but about moving forward despite it. The stage was set, but would her heart allow her to step into it? With that question heavy in her mind, she glanced at Ethan, knowing the coming days would demand more from her than she had ever envisioned. Would she crumble, or would she rise? Riley stood at the classroom door, the laughter of her students filling the air like bright notes of a joyous melody. But the music felt distant, muffled by the weight of her thoughts. Today she didn't want to just teach. She wanted to inspire. The encounter with Ethan reverberated in her mind, pushing her to become a catalyst for change, not just for herself, but for the students who looked up to her. As she settled behind her desk, the vibrant chaos of the classroom washed over her again. Faces eager to learn, hands raised with questions, and hearts open to new ideas. Each child was a reminder that she had a commitment to fulfill. Each lesson could spark a fire of curiosity, a hunger for growth that echoed her own dreams. Yet, beneath the surface of that enthusiasm lay a current of uncertainty, a pulsating fear of inadequacy. Would they accept her vision? All right, everyone. Riley clapped her hands together. Today, we're going to talk about what it means to dream big and tackle challenges together. The children responded with a chorus of enthusiastic cheers, her pulse quickening in response. Their excitement invigorated her, but she felt the added responsibility settle on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. "Who can tell me what it means to confront a challenge?" she asked, her voice steady, projecting a confidence she still wrestled with internally. Hands shot up. She called on a boy in the front, eager as ever. It's like when you're scared to jump into the deep end of the pool, but you know you have to if you want to swim faster," he exclaimed, eyes shining with determination. "Exactly," Riley beamed, heart swelling. "And sometimes, confronting challenges means stepping out of our comfort zones, like opening up about our dreams. Who here has a dream they find hard to share?" Several hands hesitated but eventually reached up. A girl in the back, timid but persistent, offered, "I want to be an artist, but everyone says I'll never make it." Riley felt a stir within her. "What if I told you that every great artist faced doubt, too? What's important is that you believe in your vision. That belief can inspire change. Just like how I believe we can make Maplewood a better place." That declaration hung in the air, an echo of vulnerability. Silence enveloped the room, and she sensed the gravity of her words taking root. They were all wrestling with similar insecurities, unsure of how to transform dreams into reality. Riley felt a shift. Perhaps this was the moment of connection she'd sought. This was her chance to share with them the very fears that gnawed at her own ambitions. "Can I tell you something?" she continued, emboldened. "Sometimes I doubt myself, but I know it's okay. We have to support one another just like Ethan and I did once. We can empower each other to take those leaps of faith, despite our fears." The children's expressions morphed from uncertainty to understanding, an alliance forming between their hearts and hers. She saw glimmers of determination igniting within them, a small flicker of hope igniting her spirit. They were beginning to mirror her journey, a journey intertwined with bravery and the willingness to confront fears. As the lesson unfolded, Riley unveiled stories of resilience, highlighting people from their own community who had faced obstacles and needless skepticism but rose to extraordinary heights. With each tale, she felt herself lifting, not just her own spirits but those of her students as well. But the reality of her own insecurities loomed within her mind, an unrelenting whisper that questioned whether this newfound enthusiasm could overcome the deep-rooted resistance she sensed from the town's older generation. Could she lead them into a more hopeful future, or would their skepticism hold sway over her dreams? At the end of the class, as excited chatter filled the room, Riley noticed how her students were now animatedly discussing their dreams and aspirations with each other. They were beginning to form a community, one that could one day challenge the doubts that surrounded them. As she watched them interact, a thought flickered in her mind, challenging her resolve. For every step forward she took, there would be resistance. The passion she felt today could easily fade under scrutiny. Could she sustain this momentum, inspire a shift beyond the classroom walls into the hearts of Maplewood? As she left the room, energy still buzzing in her veins, Riley couldn't shake off the feeling that change was just around the corner. Yet, in the back of her mind loomed the daunting truth. The time had come to face those who would question her intentions and ideals. With a deep breath, she steeled herself. Tomorrow would demand a confrontation, and she would have to gather strength from within and her newfound community to navigate the treacherous waters ahead. Would her determination break through the shadows of doubt surrounding her? Riley arrived at school the next morning with a resolve that pulsed in her veins. The previous day's breakthrough with her students had ignited a flicker of hope within her. But now, as she approached the worn brick facade of Maplewood Elementary, anxiety gnawed at her. Today was not just about inspiring her students. It was about protecting her vision from the shadows of doubt that clung to the town like ivy on an old building. With each step towards the staff room, she considered her colleagues' murmurs. Some spoke fondly of tradition and stability, while others whispered about the necessity of keeping things in line. Those voices represented the resistance she feared. Teachers entrenched in their ways, skeptical of new ideas. Would they ridicule her efforts? Would she find allies or adversaries among them? Her heart raced as she pushed the door open and took in the familiar surroundings. Light streamed in from the high windows, illuminating the long tables crowded with coffee cups and paperwork. She forced a smile, hoping to siphon off any negative energy that threatened to suffocate her ambition. "Hey, Riley," called out Matt, one of the more enthusiastic staff members, breaking through her brewing doubts. "You should come to the faculty meeting today. I hear there's going to be a discussion about changes in the curriculum." Riley's stomach lurched. Changes sounded promising, but it also hinted at criticism. "What kind of changes?" she asked, cautiously probing. "More focus on creative learning. Getting the kids to think outside the box," he said with an infectious enthusiasm. Her mind spun as possibilities cascaded through her thoughts. This could be the very platform she needed to advocate for her ideas. But the momentum she felt was tempered by hesitation. Could she articulate her vision clearly enough to sway her colleagues? Could she withstand the scrutiny? As the meeting began, Riley took a seat among familiar faces, her pulse quickening with every heartbeat. As discussions unfolded, Riley listened carefully. Suggestions flew like paper airplanes through the air. Some were practical, grounded in statistical reports, others idealistic, wrapped in lofty aspirations. Yet, each argument hinged on what was safe rather than what was possible. When her principal, Mrs. Jensen, opened the floor for input, her palms felt sweaty against the cool surface of the table. Riley's stomach churned, torn between the desire to share her students' newfound inspirations and the fear of ridicule. I was thinking." Riley finally spoke up, her voice surprisingly steady despite her heart's protests. "What if we encourage students to express their dreams more openly?" I saw a spark in their eyes when we discussed confronting challenges as a class. A murmur rolled through the room, a mixture of surprise and skepticism flickering in the eyes of her colleagues. Mrs. Jensen raised an eyebrow, seemingly pondering the suggestion. Riley pressed on, driven by an urge to connect the dots between what she had seen and what the school could cultivate. "It's crucial that we foster a sense of belief in our students," she continued, emboldened. "If we don't let them dream, how can we expect them to flourish?" "Sounds nice, but is that really practical?" Mr. Harper, a veteran teacher with a reputation for critical feedback, countered, crossing his arms. The air thickened with tension, and Riley felt her heart pound in her chest. She inhaled deeply, the mixture of admiration and trepidation pouring forth. "Dreaming without boundaries can lead to innovative solutions, Mr. Harper. Kids have this raw potential we should harness, rather than stifle." Silence reigned for a moment, eyes flickering among the group. Riley felt exposed yet invigorated by her own words. This was not merely about teaching. It was a transformational push against a rigid system. But would they see it? Her uncertainty hung like a dark cloud over her ambitions. Was this all for naught? Every face around her reflected a myriad of judgments, each one a thread in a fabric of resistance. As the meeting wrapped up, she felt the adrenaline coursing through her, the whisper of hope battling the uncertainty. Had she planted the seeds for a real conversation about change, or had she only scratched the surface of their doubt? Determined to break the cycle, she stepped out of the meeting room with a renewed sense of purpose. But as she wandered the quiet hallways, she realized the facade she had built around her vision was still fragile. Change was daunting, and her efforts might be met with hostility. But she couldn't back down now. The upheaval she envisioned for her students began to swirl within her, a potent mixture of fear and determination. She needed allies, people who believed in the potential she saw so clearly in those bright, eager faces. But as she pondered her next step, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real test had just begun. The battle ahead would not only happen within the confines of the classroom but also against a backdrop of traditions resistant to evolution. Riley resolved to prepare for the next confrontation, for it was clear, bold visions always meet walls of skepticism. In the end, she would need to challenge not just the mindset of her colleagues but also the very foundation of her own courage. How do I turn this dream into reality? She wondered, the question echoing ominously in her mind. The answer would require more than determination. It would demand a commitment to dig deeper than ever before. And as she walked through the hallway, ready to confront the doubts standing in her way, She caught a glimpse of a familiar face in the doorway. Ethan, observing silently, yet somehow radiating encouragement. Would their shared aspirations light a path through the shadows, threatening to dim her resolve? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily on Riley as she navigated the hallways, the echo of her heartbeat mingling with the hustle of students and teachers beyond. Each classroom she passed felt like a window into closed worlds, places where creativity was stifled by methodical routines. She needed to break through these barriers, yet a persistent voice in her head cautioned her about overstepping. Ethan's presence lingered in her thoughts, a silent affirmation of validation. Yet the reality of her journey felt overwhelming. Could she truly not only inspire her students but also affect change among her peers? The dismissal from Mr. Harper echoed, filling her mind with doubts. Was change realistic, or merely a lofty ideal? Her afternoon classes loomed like mountains, and she steeled herself for what lay ahead. Walking into her classroom, she was met with curious glances from her students, their youthful enthusiasm untainted by adult fears. "All right, class. Today I want to try something different," she announced, her voice steady despite the quaking in her chest. "Let us talk about what you dream of becoming or creating. No filters." Eager hands shot up at once, faces lighting up with possibilities, expressing ideas from astronaut aspirations to inventing revolutionary gadgets. The room buzzed with energy, and for a moment, her worries faded here. In this space, ideas flowed freely. As each child spoke, Riley felt her resolve solidifying. Each dream shared was a bullet point on her list of reasons to push forward. Yet, a sharp reminder surfaced when one student timidly expressed fear of ridicule from peers for dreaming too big. It resonated deeply, reflecting her own trepidations. Instead of brushing aside the concern, she leaned in. "Can anyone relate to that fear?" she asked, threading her hands together on the desk, encouraging openness. Many nodded, eyes lowered. Sharing dreams can feel like standing naked in a crowd, but it's essential, she encouraged, her heart opening wide to the collective vulnerability swirling in the room. "Let us practice supporting each other. How might we lift each other up?" As they brainstormed ways to champion one another, the atmosphere shifted. Children began suggesting ways to celebrate each person's ideas, creating a wall of dreams. They envisioned celebrating creativity with showcase events. The jubilant atmosphere lifted her spirits, illuminating paths she hadn't dared to consider for the broader community. By the end of the class, Riley's confidence swelled. The students had reignited her sense of purpose and belief that change, though daunting, was attainable. But as she left the classroom, her pulse raced at the thought of returning to the staff room for another confrontation, this time, with ideas not just for the students, but for the entire school culture. How could she present these children's dreams as a collective plea for a new approach? Gathering her thoughts, she paused to glimpse the wall outside her classroom. Each dream they envisioned deserved an audience beyond those four walls. Driven by her students, Riley set out to craft a presentation for the faculty that intertwined their aspirations with her vision for a dynamic curriculum. But the nagging shadow of skepticism loomed larger. This wouldn't just be about exchanging ideas. It felt like a personal renewal, a moment to stand firm against the dismissals that haunted her. As she walked into the staff room that afternoon, she knew she was ready for battle, armed with the voices and dreams of the students who depended on her courage to reshape the narrative surrounding creativity in education. When she spotted Mrs. Jensen, her heart raced. It was time for a decisive confrontation. "Riley, are you all right? You look determined," Mrs. Jensen remarked, her curious gaze locking with Riley's. Swallowing hard, Riley felt the burn of determination ignite. "I have something to share," she said, her voice steady, betraying none of the turmoil roiling within. Just as the murmur of interest rippled through the staff room, she recalled the countless discussions and deliberations that had taken place over the years. The air crackled with the potency of potential transformation enveloping them. Could this be the moment that shifted everything, or merely one more futile attempt? "I've been thinking," she began slowly, her heart pounding like a drum, "about what it means to truly empower our students." But as Riley prepared to plunge deeper into the conversation, the atmosphere turned tangible, heavy with anticipation and an undercurrent of doubt. Was her conviction enough to penetrate the layers of skepticism that seemed insurmountable? The silence in the staff room thickened as Riley gathered her thoughts, each pause stretching into a potential breaking point. She was at the precipice of something monumental, yet uncertainty tinged every word she prepared to utter. The weight of her peers' expectations pressed down on her shoulders like the very burdens she hoped to lift from her students. Empowering students means creating an environment where creativity and dreams are not just encouraged but celebrated. She continued, urgency fueling her words. During class, I asked my students to share their aspirations, and what emerged was nothing short of inspiring. Riley caught glimmers of interest flitting across faces. Mrs. Jensen leaned forward slightly, while Mr. Harper's skepticism remained firmly etched. Ignoring the latter, she pressed on. They talked about wanting to be astronauts, inventors, artists, things traditionally dismissed as mere childhood fantasies. She said, feeling a spark of courage course through her. I realized that it's our responsibility to help mold these ambitions into tangible paths. A quick glance around the room revealed mixed reactions. Some nodded, while others exchanged skeptical looks. Yet, Riley found solace in one thought. She was no longer alone. She had drawn strength from her students, and their dreams were real. What if we constructed a wall of dreams? She proposed, more animated now. A space dedicated to showcasing student ideas and ambitions. Imagine the shift in our school culture if every child felt validated in their dreams. Mrs. Jensen's brows furrowed thoughtfully. And how would that translate into curriculum changes? Riley hesitated for a heartbeat. The practicality of merging creativity with standardized standards echoed in her mind, a daunting yet essential task. By integrating their goals into lessons, we can foster an engaging learning experience, she argued. Lessons could revolve around problem-solving real issues they care about instead of rote memorization. Essentially, you're suggesting we completely restructure our teaching methodology? Mr. Harper interrupted, sarcasm lacing his tone. Yes, she replied, surprising herself with her own confidence. A structure that stifles creativity must evolve. Our current approach does not foster innovation. Doubt washed over her like a cold, bitter wind. Was she overstepping? She gripped the edge of the table, resolving to stand her ground. If we want our students to feel empowered to dream and create, we must embody those values ourselves. She pressed, channeling the enthusiasm of her classroom. The once buzzing energy flickered back into her voice. We owe it to them to let their imaginations flourish. Several heads nodded this time. Riley recognized the shift in the room, a crack forming in the wall of resistance. But skepticism wouldn't dissipate easily, not without proof. Do you have a solid plan for implementation? Mrs. Jensen's question pierced through her exhilaration, grounding Riley back to reality. Not entirely, Riley admitted, her stomach twisting. But I can talk to my class about it more. We could gather their ideas for how they want this wall to look and which subjects to enrich through their aspirations. I'll work on developing comprehensive proposals. Mr. Harper folded his arms skeptically. That sounds idealistic. It may be more complex than you realize. But isn't that what we should strive for? Riley replied, feeling a wave of determination surge through her. Progress often means navigating complexities. If we were to try, just imagine the potential within our students, the air electrified with tension and possibility. But would her enthusiasm be enough to sway those rooted in tradition? As the meeting drew toward a close, Riley felt vulnerable yet invigorated. She had begun a dialogue that could lead to profound change, yet uncertainty loomed ominously still. How would she face the inevitable pushback in the days to come? Riley realized this was merely the starting point. The true challenge lay ahead as she mustered the courage to transform hope into actionable plans. A thought struck her. Was she ready to confront her doubts and those of her colleagues, or would fear choke her aspirations? With resolute purpose, she decided that the battle for her students' dreams had only just begun. The real question remained: could she initiate a wave of transformation, or would she retreat back into the shadows of doubt? As she rose to leave, Riley felt a rush of clarity. This journey towards empowerment would not just redefine her students' futures. It might reshape her own identity, too. Riley stepped back into her classroom, heart racing yet emboldened by the seeds of change she had planted in the staff room. The echoes of doubt from Mr. Harper danced on the edge of her consciousness, but she silenced them with a renewed fervor. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about igniting a shift in her students, a transformation that could ripple through their lives. As the bell chimed, the classroom flooded with the vibrant energy of her fifth graders. Excited chatter filled the air, almost drowning out her own thoughts. She cleared her throat, ready to share her vision, the concept of the wall of dreams, but the words seemed to catch in her throat. Would they even care? Did they fully understand the import of this shift? All right, everyone, settle down, she began, her voice wavering faintly. I had an idea inspired by our earlier discussions about dreams and aspirations. I want us to build a wall of dreams, a space where you can express what you want to be when you grow up and what excites you. The faces around her ignited with curiosity. A few students leaned forward, their eagerness lighting a spark in Riley's chest. She continued, her confidence growing. I want each of you to share your thoughts. What do you want to achieve? And how can we incorporate these dreams into our lessons? Hands shot up, each child vying for her attention. A frenzy of voices erupted, each narrative blending into a cacophony of ambition and hope. Riley felt each idea deepen within her, mirroring a burgeoning sense of purpose. Perhaps the wall of dreams was the tangible embodiment of what she had sought for so long. This moment was a collective awakening. Okay, let us hear it one at a time. Jenna? Riley pointed to the girl bouncing in her seat. I want to be a scientist and invent new things. Jenna exclaimed, her eyes wide. Fantastic. How do you think we could explore that in our class? Riley prompted, her heart swelling with pride. We could do experiments. Jenna replied. Riley's mind began spinning possibilities. Imagine lessons rooted in student-driven exploration, weaving their aspirations into each unit. She encouraged more kids to share, relishing the gems that shone through their youthful minds. I want to be a musician, piped up Malik. We could create a song about our dreams. A song? Amazing. Riley beamed, already envisioning a music project intertwining students' aspirations. Feverish enthusiasm filled the room, and Riley found herself swept away by the momentum of ideas. Yet, as excitement proliferated, a shadow of doubt cast its pall again. Could this dream truly materialize? She recalled Mrs. Jensen's question about curriculum changes, the practicalities looming large in her mind. Listen, everyone, I need your help, she said, her voice taking on an earnest edge. We need to figure out how these dreams can fit into our subjects, not just be stories on the wall. Can we make connections with math, science, or language arts? More hands shot up, and this time the ideas flowed with depth. Students quickly began brainstorming subjects, discussing how their interests could tie into the curriculum. They suggested writing essays on their dream careers, researching historical figures who had paved the way in their desired fields, and exploring mathematical concepts that related to their aspirations. Riley felt the weight of the world lift slightly off her shoulders. They were taking ownership, breathing life into the vision she had tentatively presented. This was her moment of clarity, a realization that fostering creativity in education might require not just courage, but a willingness to adapt and learn alongside her students. Yet, as the session ended and waves of energy waned, the looming confrontation with Mr. Harper and the rest of the faculty nagged at her. She knew resistance awaited her, and navigating the choppy waters of established traditions and skepticism would challenge her resolve. Could she defend her vision, or would inertia suck her back into the familiar confines of the past? With her students buzzing about their ideas, Riley felt empowered yet wary. The battle lines were drawn, but there was definite potential for change. As she watched their faces light up with possibility, she realized that she needed to confront not only external doubt, but her own fears about stepping into leadership. The road ahead demanded more than enthusiasm. It required strategy, perseverance, and the ability to inspire those around her. As she gathered her belongings to leave for the day, a fresh sense of purpose surged within her. Could she really embrace this new identity and unearth the leader within? Almost as if sensing the gravity of her internal struggle, little Jenna sidled up beside her, breaking the momentary reverie. "Are you excited for the wall, Ms. Riley?" she asked innocently, wide-eyed. "More than you know," Riley replied, her voice catching with the silent promise that settled between them. It was time to face the music one way or another. The fight for her students' dreams had only just begun, and the real challenge loomed ever larger. Nothing would ever be the same again. Would she rise to the challenge, or retreat into the shadow of doubt that had once so powerfully defined her? The following morning dawned crisp and clear, but Riley's mind was a tumult of thoughts as she made her way to school. The excitement from her students' ideas clashed violently with the anticipatory dread of facing Mr. Harper. Each step toward the school felt like a small victory laced with anxiety. Could she muster the courage to confront potential criticism head-on, all the while keeping her vision intact? As the sunlight cast playful shadows across the hallways, Riley's insights sparked countless ideas for the Wall of Dreams. She pictured a vibrant tapestry of aspirations that could blend into her curriculum in a meaningful way. Yet apprehension infiltrated her enthusiastic planning. What if her colleagues dismissed her ideas as idealistic nonsense? The classroom welcomed her like a warm embrace, the familiar chaos of 50 tiny footfalls and cheerful banter offering a temporary reprieve from her nagging fears. She stood at the front and took a moment to absorb the room, their energy vibrant, ripe with possibilities. It felt surreal that just yesterday, they had begun crafting a piece of their collective future. But now, she sensed an intangible weight just beyond her reach. "Good morning, class," she called out, slipping into her teaching persona. "Let us get started on the Wall of Dreams today." The buzz of anticipation was palpable. As students grabbed sheets of colored paper, Riley's resolve crystallized. If she wanted to lead this mission, she needed not only the collaboration of her students but the support of her fellow teachers. She took a deep breath and decided to invite curious colleagues to observe their discussions. "Today we're going to share our thoughts on what dreams are and how they can intertwine with our school subjects," she explained, her voice steadying with conviction. "Let us show everyone what we've crafted." Each student presented their dreams more than just words. They were profound, idiosyncratic glimpses into young souls filled with ambition. As they spoke, Riley felt a mixture of pride and fierce determination course through her. They were engaging with a level of enthusiasm that transcended any curriculum she had known. Yet beneath that pride loomed the shadows of her doubts, whispering that she would soon face an uphill battle, a potentially contentious discussion with the faculty. These thoughts gnawed at her, creating a palpable tension in her gut. Still, she faced her fears, knowing that to retreat would only suffocate their collective dreams. After school, she made her way to the staff room, heart thudding heavily in her chest. Mr. Harper was seated at his usual spot, flipping through budgets. Riley could almost hear her own pulse, loud and insistent, as she approached him. "Mr. Harper, do you have a minute?" she asked, her hands moist but determined. He glanced up, raising an eyebrow skeptically. "Make it quick, Riley. I'm busy." Gathering her thoughts, Riley stepped forward, recalling the passion of her students' dreams and the vibrant possibilities they had crafted. "I wanted to discuss our Wall of Dreams project. I believe it can align with our learning objectives while engaging the students in a way that feels meaningful and relevant." He leaned back, crossing his arms, his expression unreadable. "Educational relevance is subjective. Are you ready to justify how this fits into our prescribed curriculum?" The atmosphere crackled with tension, threatening to engulf her. Riley's mind raced, grappling with Mr. Harper's challenge. "I understand the concern," she replied carefully, "but I believe incorporating their aspirations can ignite a passion for learning that we've been struggling to foster. We can integrate math, science, and language arts into this framework. It's not just about dreams. It's about skills." As she spoke, she felt the shift within herself, a newfound resilience taking root. Not only was she addressing the students' desires, but she was also defending her authority as an educator in an evolving landscape. Mr. Harper's silence loomed heavy, and the moment stretched out, each second, feeling like a lifetime. Would he hear her? Would he open the door to new opportunities? "I'll consider it," he finally said, though the intensity of his gaze suggested he remained skeptical. As Riley walked out of the staff room, a wave of uncertainty washed over her, accompanied by a flicker of hope. Could her voice make a difference amid a sea of tradition? She felt like a tightrope walker, balancing on the thin line between courage and fear. Her thoughts raced to the students. Would the spirits of creativity she had witnessed earlier extinguish in the face of institutional doubt? Determination bubbled within her. Riley strode out, the weight of uncertainty still gnawing, but with each step, a rising fire ignited within her, a promise forged in the collision of fear and resolve. The fight for the Wall of Dreams was far from over. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. Would her vision be a fleeting dream or an enduring reality? As Riley turned to lock the classroom for the night, she knew that her pursuit blossomed into something larger than herself, something worth fighting for. The real battle was just beginning, and she was ready to fight for every child's dream. But would the faculty be supportive, or would internal conflict threaten to stifle this spark of potential? It was time to find out. The next day, Riley returned to school with a renewed sense of purpose. The brisk morning air filled her lungs as she navigated the familiar path lined with overhanging branches that whispered secrets of resilience. Yet, beneath her fortified exterior, a gnawing unease threatened to undermine her confidence. Mr. Harper's skeptical consideration hung over her like a storm cloud, a reminder of the uphill battle she still faced. Her first class buzzed with enthusiasm. Students talked about their dreams, tackled with various subjects in mind, chatting excitedly as they prepared for another round of presentations. Riley felt a smile begin to shape her face. Their excitement was infectious. Still, as she observed their spirited exchanges, a flicker of doubt crept in. What if today was just an isolated event? What if she couldn't sustain this momentum? "Class, let us dive into our wall of dreams again," she said, trying to inject confidence into her voice. "Today, I want to hear more about how we can connect your dreams with what we learn every day." The students nodded eagerly, ready to share. One by one, the students recounted not only their personal aspirations but how aspects of math, science, and literature intertwined with their visions. A girl named Anna stood up to articulate her dream of becoming an astronaut, seamlessly integrating calculations about rocket fuel requirements into her narrative. Riley's heart swelled with pride, recognizing the potential in each child's connection to the curriculum. In that moment, an idea sparked. If she could provide a framework that showed Mr. Harper how practically these dreams translated into academic performance, perhaps it would carry more weight. She started to visualize her approach, connecting the dreams to measurable learning outcomes that could withstand administrative scrutiny. During the lunch break, armed with newfound clarity, Riley sought out two colleagues whom she believed might be receptive to her vision. Emma, an English teacher, and Jake, who taught math, were known for their innovative teaching styles. Standing before them, she felt the clenching of her stomach, a mix of excitement and anxiety. "Hey, could we chat about integrating something creative into our curriculums?" she began, gauging their interest. Emma raised an eyebrow while Jake shifted his weight slightly. "I've been working on a project called the Wall of Dreams," Riley continued, gaining momentum as she shared her students' aspirations and how they could authentically link with their subjects. "It's about fostering passion and creativity while ensuring we hit all the core standards." Both listened attentively, an encouraging sign. "That's an interesting approach," Emma said thoughtfully. "Have you thought about how to present it to the faculty?" Riley hesitated. The task of persuading the faculty out of the traditional methods made her stomach flip. "That's exactly what I'm grappling with. I think if we bolster it with data linking engagement and academic performance data." Jake interrupted, his brows furrowed. "That might be key. If you can show Mr. Harper how the kids are actually performing and learning, it's much harder for him to refute your points." Riley felt a surge of validation. They brainstormed together, mixing ideas about data collection methods, potential student presentations, and ways to emphasize the significance of emotional investment in learning. By the end of lunch, Riley walked away with new strategies and allies ready to help her champion the project. Leaving the cafeteria, Riley felt invigorated. The winds of change were shifting slightly in her favor. But as she made her way back to her classroom, an ominous thought gripped her. She still needed to gather quantitative evidence supporting her project. How would she measure the correlation between students' emotional engagement and academic success? And what if her faculty could pose unforeseen challenges? Pausing outside her classroom, she caught her reflection in the glass door. Determination shone in her eyes. The battle lines were drawn, and she would not back down. Every child's dream deserved a bridge into reality. Riley took a deep breath and stepped inside. The stakes felt real, the horizon yet again uncertain. She was beginning to realize the depth of the fight still ahead. Tomorrow would require strategy, and she needed to prepare. But hindsight brought clarity. She wouldn't just have to face institutional doubts. She'd unlock her inner tenacity. As she began organizing her lesson plans, a question lingered. Would Mr. Harper's skepticism evolve into support? Or would Riley's aspirations be cast aside once more? The answers lay just around the corner, and Riley felt both anxious and determined to discover them. As the sun broke through the clouds the next day, Riley's resolve felt stronger than ever. With each step toward school, her determination crystallized, overshadowing the doubts that had haunted her for months. She was ready to reclaim her narrative not just for herself, but for the students whose dreams intertwined with her own aspirations of fostering change in Maplewood. The day began with a buzz of energy as she welcomed her class. Stepping into their gratitude and enthusiasm, Riley felt an electric current ripple through her, solidifying her sense of purpose. Good morning, everyone. Today, we're taking a big step towards our wall of dreams, she announced, her voice brimming with optimism. With eyes wide with anticipation, her students eagerly shared their ideas, and this time, Riley introduced a method to document the connections between their dreams and what they were learning. Together, they formulated ideas that were not simply enthusiastic declarations but strategic plans. Let us track how each of your dreams connects with our lessons. We can gather evidence that shows your passion leads to learning, she suggested, and her students responded with fervor. This collaborative experience ignited Riley's spirits. Rather than merely observing their growth, she was actively participating in their dreams, an experience she had always longed for. Her heart swelled as she watched the children transform into enthusiastic learners, curious about how their aspirations intertwined with academic success. Later, as her students engaged in a spirited discussion about linking dream projects with essential concepts, Riley's mind drifted to her impending meeting with the faculty. With the encouragement of Emma and Jake, she looked forward to presenting her ideas not just as a teacher, but as a leader committed to cultivating not only education but empowerment. As lunch approached, Riley found a moment of solitude in her classroom, allowing herself to breathe deeply and sharpen her presentation. The palpable anxiety nagged at her, but now she also felt an undercurrent of hope. The ideas blossoming in her students' minds represented steps towards lasting change, a change that would ripple through the community. That afternoon, she joined the faculty meeting armed not just with enthusiasm but also with evidence. Her students had submitted projects linked to core subjects seamlessly. Jenna's science project on rocket launches cleverly incorporated math calculations about fuel efficiencies, while Malik and his creative team composed a theme song that covered their learning objectives through rhythm and rhymes. As she presented, Riley's voice found strength. She emphasized how engagement was not merely an abstract concept but linked directly to measurable academic improvements. She recognized the skepticism in some of her colleagues' eyes, but she pressed on, speaking with conviction about the importance of creativity in education. What we're witnessing is more than just dreams on paper. It's our students demonstrating ownership of their education. Their success is our success, Riley stated, her heart thumping in rhythm with her words. By constructing a wall of dreams, we're investing in their potential. Connecting their aspirations with our curriculum will foster a culture of innovation. The room buzzed with murmurs, and even Mr. Harper leaned forward, brow furrowed in thought. Riley paused, sensing a shift. It was a moment of vulnerability, but also of empowerment. She seized the opportunity to invite her colleagues to engage. Let us think about the future of our students. What might we lose if we stifle their creativity? The question hung in the air, suddenly a beacon illuminating possibilities. One by one, colleagues began to express their support for the project. Emma spoke up about integrating touchpoints within her English lessons, while Jake offered to gather data on student engagement. A collaborative energy enveloped the room, echoing the transformation happening within Riley's heart. As the meeting adjourned with a tentative commitment to pilot the Wall of Dreams, Riley's chest swelled with accomplishment. The battle was not over, but she had stepped into her role as an advocate, a testament to the creativity and courage woven into her journey. That evening, as she reflected on the day, Riley experienced a profound sense of fulfillment. She had not only confronted her fears, but proved to herself and others that she was capable of leading change. Her students' dreams would flourish within a supportive framework, and the potential for transformation connected them all in shared purpose. When she arrived home, exhausted yet exhilarated, Riley smiled at her reflection in the mirror. Confidence radiated from within, and as she prepared for the day ahead, Susan's simile echoed in her mind. Riley, every great change begins with courage. With this newfound confidence illuminating her path, she was ready to cultivate the seeds of dreams planted in her students' hearts and spread that change through the Maplewood community. No longer lingering in shadows, she was now a beacon of empowerment, leading herself and her students toward a brighter horizon. In a final acknowledgement of her journey, Riley resolved to share her story widely, knowing that each victory for herself and her students deserved to be celebrated. Now it was your turn to take inspired action. You need to subscribe now to our channel for more empowering stories that uplift and invigorate. This is the moment to show your support for educators and their journeys. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and spread this inspiring message. Comment your thoughts and reactions below. Your insights could inspire others. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this transformative journey.